This samurai mama. You said you're surprised that Mars is called the auspicious one. That's because Mars's name is Mongol. And it's mistranslated as auspicious. It actually means the one who crosses the threshold. One who crosses over things. And it's because Mars retrogression is the most erratic. All right, now to the topic today. We're finally starting on the fifth canto of the Bhagavatam. That's the big news. So let's do that. So it starts off with Rajovacha, Priyavrata Bhagavata, Atmarama Kathamane. If I turn this off for a second. It starts off by saying Rajovacha. Does anybody know what that means? Raja Uvacha. It means the king said. So, king who? Who is this king? Can anybody guess? Who's speaking at the beginning of Canto 5? Which king, Alf? Yeah, that's a cool spelling. Parikshit. Pariksha. Parikshit. Very good. So this is back to the top layer of the story where it's a conversation between Shuka and Parikshit. Very good. Rajavacha Priyavrata. That's the last name that we heard at the end of the fourth canto, Priyavrata. Priyavrata Bhagavata Atmarama Katham Mune Grihe Ramanta Yan Mula Karma Bandha Parabhava. It means King Parikshit asked Shuka, a sage, if Priyavrata was a self-satisfied person, why would he act like a sensualist? Sensuality is the root cause of bondage to karma and loss of everything. So this is in relation to a statement at the very end of fourth canto. In the fourth canto, in the last chapter, in the 27th text, Narada had said that Priyavrata had realized the self by learning from Narada, learning from him, and then became an emperor. So that seems odd. At least to this king, Parikshit, it seems odd that somebody would become self-realized and then become an emperor. And his reasoning is Atma Rama. Everybody seeks Rama. Rama is pleasure. Atma Rama means somebody who generates their own pleasure. So that's what happens when you realize the self, what the self really is. You generate your own pleasure. You don't require anything else. So he says a person who realizes the self is an Atma Rama. They generate their own pleasure. So Katam Grihe Ramanta. If they're Atma Rama, why would they become Grihe Rama? Grihe Rama. Grihe means senses, or sensual life, or ordinary life, conventional life, home life. If somebody is Atma Rama, why would they become Grihe Rama? If somebody is spiritualist, why would they become a sensualist? Because it would. The king is asking. It's like saying somebody found a diamond. Somebody was looking for jewels and they found a diamond, but then they put it down because they heard there was iron somewhere else. Why would they go get iron? They found a diamond. It's like saying, I cooked a wonderful meal for the person, but they went into the garbage and pulled out yesterday's thing that we threw out and ate that. That's why he's confused. Understand this question? So Atmarama Katam Grihe Ramanta Yan Mula. The Grihe Ramanta is a problem. To take pleasure in the senses is a problem because it's karma. It's the mula, the root of karma bandha, of bondage to cause and effect. The reason why sensual pleasure is problematic is because it's always strings attached to it. Because it's extrinsic to you, it's external to you. So you become dependent upon things. And it ruins the better thing also. Because when the focus is out, you can't focus in. All right, so that's his first question. Oh, sage, if Priyavrata was a self-satisfied person, why would he act like a sensualist? Sensuality is the root cause of bondage to karma and the loss of everything. Usually, the person would be the emperor first, and then become self-realized, and then put his kingdom in the care of somebody else and go do his meditation or something. Priyavrata seemed to do it in the opposite order. Parikshit's interested in knowing more about that. Yes, Ruth, it's upside down. All right. Second text. Let me just close these distractions. The second text is Nanunam Mukta Sanghanam Tadrishanam Dvisharshaba Griheshva Vinivesh Oyam Tungshang Bhavitamarhati. Anyone who is liberated from attachment certainly doesn't deserve to become obsessed with sensual things. Doesn't deserve arhati. It's like not really fitting. Like you have a nice cooked meal, freshly cooked food in front of you. Why are you going in the garbage pail looking for scraps? And he says in the third text, Mahatam Kalu Viprashe Uttama Shloka Padayo Chaya Nivrita Chittanam Naktumbe Sprihamati. The thoughts of great people cannot be touched by sensuality because they are satisfied in the poetic shade of the most glorious. So he's just kind of elaborating on his question. Uttama Shloka. Uttama Shloka means the most glorious. Shloka means to glorify. Uttama means the highest. The most Uttama Shloka means the most glorious, and it's also a reference to Vishnu. And then Pada means feet, and it also means verse. And Shloka means glorious, and it also means poem. Something which glorifies something is called a Shloka. So there's a lot of meaning, double or triple meaning in the Uttama Shloka Padayo. Uttama Shloka Padayo means in the verses of the poems about the most glorious, and it also means in the shade of the feet of Vishnu. Chaya Nivrita. Chaya is the shade. Nivrita Chittanam. They are relaxing. Chitta is the thoughts, and Nivrita means not doing anything, not having any work, not having any occupation. So these Mahatas, the great people, they're definitely Kalu, satisfied and therefore relaxing, enjoying the Uttama Shloka Padachaya, the shade. Why would they go to Kutumba, which means procreation, sexuality, childbirthing, reproduction? Why would they go to Kutumba? The Kutumba won't sprihamati. It won't even be able. It won't touch their intellect. You don't really think about how much you want to drink water when you're not thirsty. But why would these people? Why would Priyavrata become interested in being a king after being self-realized? And remember, who's Priyavrata? Priyavrata is the child that the Prachetas fathered with Marisha. After all that austerity and meditation on Shiva's song. Okay, let me check and see if there's any questions. No questions so far. So the fourth one. This is the end of his question. Shamshayo yan mahan brahman Daragara sutadishu saktasya yatsidir abhut Krishnecha matirachutya chutya. I'm confused how a person addicted to spouse, home, and children would achieve the perfection of never having their mind full of Krishna. So this is on is it the same statement? It's the same statement. So this is on the same statement that Narada made, because he said that Narada achieved perfection after an emperor. So in this text, at the end of the fourth canto, Narada said, by the way, these Prachetas, they had a child with Marisha, and the child's name was Priyavrata, and that was a reincarnation of Daksha. Excuse me, Sati's father. Many centuries after that event. And this person was self-realized because Narada educated him. But then after becoming self-realized, he became an emperor. And then he perfectly fixed his mind on Krishna and attained the ultimate perfection. So that's the statement about Priyavrata, and Parikshit finds it perplexing, because it doesn't follow any kind of usual pattern. The usual pattern is not become self-realized, then have a career, and then through that career become perfected in your self-realization. The usual pattern is have a career, become self-realized, then become perfected. So you understand how it's weird? And you understand what the question is? So he's got two doubts. His first doubt is, how good was his self-realization if he wanted to be an emperor? Right? What level of self-realization is that you would be attracted to becoming an emperor again? And the second question is, how is it that being an emperor didn't disturb him? Because if you're an emperor, then you're going to get involved with your queen, your royal princes and princesses, your kingdom and all that stuff. Your mind's going to get on all that stuff. So how did you say that his mind didn't fall off Krishna? That's his question. Thank you, Colin. Now, this canto is not going to be about Daksha, as far as I understand, but we're just getting the story of Priyavrata first. That's the tie-over from the fourth canto. So, I also have translated for you Shukadev's answer. Shukadev's answer. This is what he said. Sri Shuka Uvacha. Now, this is also the first time that you'll see in Bhagavatam things not written in poem form, but written in prose. And as far as I remember, it's only in this fifth canto, and it happens a lot in the fifth canto. And I remember the person who tried to teach me Sanskrit explained to me that it's actually more difficult to not write in poetry when you're writing Sanskrit. And to make it sound good. So to make things beautiful without using poetic meters is even more artistic. So anyway, here it is. This is just regular, straight, prosaic Sanskrit. Sri Shuka Uvacha. Badam Uktaim Bhagavata Uttama Shloka Srimach Charanaravinda Makaranda Rasa Aveshita Chetaso Bhagavata Paramahamsa Daitya Katham Kinchit Antaraya Vihtam Swam Shivatamam Padavim Naprayena Hinvati. I wonder if Parikshit was a little bit surprised. I wonder if, well, maybe this is all just Vyasa's writing of it, but let's assume that it's like kind of the way that he actually spoke it. I wonder if Parikshit was surprised when he didn't respond with a meter and a poetic verse. So this is what it means. Sri Shuka Vacha, the beautiful Shuka said, or the blessed Shuka said, Badam Muktam. That's right. What you said is right. You spoke right. And what was right about it? Bhagavata Uttama Shlokasya, the poetic glories of Bhagavan, Srimad Charanaravinda Makaranda Rasa. The verses are charana. The charana also means feet, so he's repeating the same double meaning as before. Charana means verses, and charana means feet. The verses are as beautiful, Srimad, and as sweet as honey. Makaranda rasa means the taste of honey. So you're right about that. The poetic glories of Bhagavan, the beauty of Bhagavan, the attractiveness of Bhagavan is as beautiful as honey. And aveshita chetaso. The cheta, or the heart, and the thoughts and the contemplation and the focus gets avesh. It gets enwrapped in that sweetness. Bhagavata Paramahamsa, the swan-like devotees of Bhagavan, Daitya Katam, they delight. Daitya means delight, or they find it to be romantic. They delight in this discussing the Bhagavaduttama Shloka. So that part you're right about, he says. But then he says, kinchit, sometimes, antaraya vihatam, swam shivatamam padavinna prayena hinvati. Sometimes the aveshta chetasa, which is enwrapped in Bhagavan, will go antaraya, will not manifest itself outwardly. Antaraya will go inward. Antaraya means going in, and vihatam means burrowing. So sometimes it will burrow in and you won't notice it. Or another meaning of vihatam is to interrupt something, and antaraya means externally. So sometimes and it's the same meaning. So by going in, it interrupts the external appearance of it. So what Shuka is saying is that a Paramahamsa Bhagavatam, a person who's realized, who's self-realized, that person will certainly have their heart enwrapped in Bhagavan. But sometimes you may not notice it. Because sometimes it gets externally interrupted, or they pause it and they just pull it in. He says, when that happens, swam shivatamam padavim, their exalted status, their most exalted status, shivatamam. Not prayena hinvati. Hinvati means to be lost, and prayena means not totally. Not prayena, not totally. So it's an interesting point. Beautiful Shuka said, you spoke correctly. Swan-like devotees of Bhagavan have their thoughts enwrapped in the poetic glories of Bhagavan, the verses of which are as sweet as honey. Sometimes this may burrow inward and externally cease, but they have not entirely lost their exalted placid status. So this is his introduction to the answer. This is just the first statement in his answer. It's going to be a longer answer, of course. What he's saying is, you're looking at Priyavrata, and you're saying he's self-realized, and then he becomes a king, and then he achieves perfection. That's weird. But what I'm saying is, sometimes a self-realized person will stop acting like a self-realized person in order to do something that needs to be done. So he's going to explain it later, but I'll just give you some coming attractions, and feel free to ask any questions because this is all I have translated so far. But just some coming attractions. What is it with Priyavrata? Why did he become a king after being self-realized? Is it because he was asked to? I believe first he was asked to by Manu, who would be like his grandfather or great grandfather, because there was nobody to rule the kingdom. There's no other person qualified to rule the kingdom, which is like the earth. It's a very difficult thing to do. So he was asked, and then he didn't want to accept, and then Brahma came and asked him. So it became his duty to do it. So he suspended acting like a self-realized person. So what Sukha is saying is that sometimes a self-realized person will stop acting like a self-realized person to get something done, but they don't not become self-realized just because they're not acting like a self-realized person. The proof of it is actually that he achieved perfection after being an emperor. Does that make sense? Now, of course, I remember my time with actual human beings trying to practice this stuff. And what would often happen is they would decide that somebody amongst them was the guru. And then, so that means this person is really hot stuff, much more self-realized than everybody else, and very, very spiritual, etc., right? And then they would find out that the person doing something very conventional. I don't know, like watching porn or whatever, like definitely watching porn, or like just maybe simpler things even. Like eating ordinary food, stuff that the spiritualist is not expected to do. And in that kind of a situation, something like this would come in very handy. The followers would find a statement like this to be very handy. A self-realized person doesn't always look like a self-realized person, but they actually are a self-realized person. So we have to be aware. We shouldn't be kids and naive about this. We have to be aware that this kind of stuff will be misappropriated and misused to justify people pretending to be worthy of spiritual reverence, but not being worthy of spiritual reverence. And the check is, okay, let's actually compare this so-called guru, who we all found out had a stash of porno in his private RV, with Priyavrata. Priyavrata was asked to do something and then refused. Didn't find it attractive, didn't find it interesting, didn't want to do it. And then was asked again. First was asked, not by an inferior either, not by a junior, not by an unknowing person, by their gurus. First he was asked by his grandfather, Manu, the god of humanity, and then he was asked by Brahma, the god of creation. After being asked to do so, then he took up a conventional mode of behavior. Whereas I doubt that anybody's guru asked them to hoard up porno VCR tapes in their RV. I doubt that it actually served anybody's benefit for them to get addicted to money and to start making sure that they have 3 scrumptious hot meals a day. And why not have a nice bathroom too? Why not have a gold-plated toilet? This is how far the guru thing actually did go in the circles that I was in. Um, I doubt that that serves any dharmic purpose to anybody. Whereas Priyavrata becoming a king served a huge purpose to every single citizen of the whole planet Earth. So let's not be stupid about these kind of statements. These things do not justify so called spiritualists acting like so called materialists. And it's entirely a different thing. So hopefully that makes sense. Any questions? No questions? Wait, there's a bunch of stuff. Samurai, if someone finds pleasure within themselves, then they are self satisfied and self sustained. But if they don't share this pleasure with others, give pleasure to others, aren't they kind of selfish? Yes. This is also going to be interesting in the coming attractions of what. Yeah, in the coming attractions of this chapter, for some reason, they're going to bring up this point. They say that you should placate your senses by doing things that are of service to others. So the reason why I think of that in regards to your question is if you're eating garbage and you want to make somebody else happy, then you'll share some of your garbage with them. But if you're eating rice and dal that's nicely cooked, you're not going to share your garbage with the person that you want to make happy. You'll share your rice and dal. So when a self satisfied person interacts with other people, they don't go around handing out lollipops or even trying to figure out the cure for cancer. They try to help other people become self satisfied because that's the food that they're eating. Advise you how to be more masculine. Okay. Anything else? Ending. Thank you for your company.